Hello and welcome to today's episode of Live with Impact. This is Angela Brown and I'm here with Omuugn and we're talking about common sense. I know you're thinking common sense is not common, is it? Well, it depends on the information that you have. We're going to talk about that and we're going to discover how we can find common sense in our everyday activities to help us make wiser choices. So please help me welcome Omuugn. How
Oh,
are
good
you
morning.
today?
I'm fine. One thing that we need to consider when we talk about common sense is the world of assumptions. Our lives are basically a flow of assumptions that we make. Some of the assumptions are more accurate than others, but the very definition of assumption is that it's incomplete information. And so your assumptions are always wrong for one reason or another. Even if you see something, you have to know why that something occurred and what was processing in the mind of the person who did it. And there's just all kinds of information that are embedded in the assumption that you're making. And you don't have access to all of that information. So you have to be careful when you make assumptions. If your common sense is based on the assumptions that you make, to that degree, your common sense will not be accurate. You need to be careful. And of course, there's a whole structure of issues, and some of them require different kinds of common sense. For example, if you decide to marry someone, that's a very serious decision. Almost half of the marriages end in divorce. Many families break up, and there are single parent families, and situations develop because people made assumptions about things that were inaccurate. And their common sense told them to go ahead and do this, marry someone or be involved in a relationship. Whereas if you would really use sound judgment and sit down and communicate and find out where people are coming from and what they believe and how they respond to things and how they see the world. So the more that you communicate and understand and base your common sense on principles that you really believe in and that are time honored, people have their own belief system along with their own common sense. Their own common sense is a reflection that comes out of their belief system. So the more you are in harmony, the more you're together, the more you see things the same way, the more your common sense will be acceptable to your family and the people around you. We need to be careful when we make assumptions because they're not accurate much of the time.
When you talk about assumptions, I am guilty of living in a different world than my husband. And my husband works outside the home and I work inside the home. So when he comes home, he thinks, oh, Angela's at home. Therefore, I can just kind of like vomit all the activities of my day and whatever happened. And it's going to be a good time for her because she's just at home. And that's an assumption that doesn't work for me very well at all because I'm usually in the middle of something really important to me when he gets home that I need it to stop and I need to regroup before I just hear all this other stuff. I just learned this common sense technique from a podcast that I was listening to, this concept, red light, green light. And I just started to use it. And it's a really interesting tactic where when my husband comes in, instead of him just, here's all the stuff from my day, so just say red light, green light. Is this a red light moment for you and you need me to stop and you regroup? Or is this a green light moment where I can go ahead and just kind of spew? The other night he came in and he said, red light, green light. And I said, red light. And he's like, oh. And so he turned around and he walked out. And I was so grateful that he did because I was just in the middle of a customer service issue. And as soon as I finished it up, I was able to like then break and go do the green light moment. But I was just so caught up in it and I was trying to help a customer and to just be interrupted, it throws everything out of whack. And so the common sense, while it's common sense for him because, oh, well, Angela's at home, I should just, go in there. The common sense to me is like, don't come in at all because I'm really busy right now. If I was just hanging out, I would be in the other room hanging out. Right. Sometimes the common sense for two people is not the same common sense. And like you said, when we make assumptions, that's where we get into serious trouble.
Yeah, if you're going to make assumptions, and we all do, I mean, that's the way life is. We don't have all of the information and we don't know all of the variables and all of the things that are happening to us. But we need to take more time to stop. There's a term called mindfulness where we can actually talk, in fact, about some of the ways that we can develop a more highly developed common sense. Mindfulness is being aware of what's going on around you. where you are and the people around you instead of coming in and dumping all of their situations on you. If they came in and they were aware that you may have had a busy day also and that you have situations that you're dealing with, we start to interact on a different level when we're empathetic toward other people and we're aware of what's happening. If I see my children fighting or quarreling or involved in any number of activities, I should be aware of what they're doing and why they're doing them. Maybe the kids have been cooped up in school all day. We actually had homeschool. So sometimes the children were in the home learning all day long and they needed to get out and run and experience some activity. And sometimes if they were in the home and they didn't have that recess time, there were a lot of activities going on in the home that are not ideal. So you need to be aware of why people are doing what they're doing and what their needs are. You want to learn from your experiences and you want to interact with other people and make sure that they are learning from their experiences and you're working together. This mindfulness is just a state of really being aware of the world that you're in and what's happening and why people want to do things, what people need to do. People have wants, needs, and desires, and we need to differentiate what those are. There's also this thing about being informed. We have to stay informed, like we were talking about. A lot of things are happening today in our culture. There are things happening, for example, in music. There are a lot of forms of music that I personally don't appreciate, things that are very dissonant. And I'm aware of the lyrics in songs, even if the melodies are okay melodies. Sometimes the language and the ideas that are proposed in the music, they're not good ideas. So you need to be more and more selective in what you let into your world. You need to have filters that things go through. You need to filter out the things that you do not want in your world. Another important element is we need to learn to ask questions. Your world is going to develop basically by the questions that you ask and the answers that you receive.
All righty. Come back next week, same time, same place. We're going to be discussing communication. Ah, another great topic. All right. Until then, have a great week.
See you next week.